Whiskey crew. Welcome to this episode of Beer to Whiskey. I'm Russ Heaps in my never-ending quest to spread the gospel of good taste. Today I find myself in Washington Township. It's a little community right outside of Dayton, Ohio. And we are at Heavier Than Air Brewery. Is it brewery or brewing company?
Brewing company.
Okay, Heavier Than Air Brewing Company. And there are lots of great, this is sort of the birthplace of aviation. So there are a lot of really unique and cool stories about this place and the beers and the naming and the whole thing. Immediately to my left here is my beer slurping co-conspirator.
I'm your co-pilot.
Yes, my co-pilot, yeah.
Co-pilot for today.
Yeah, Randy Porter, he's a fraternity brother of mine. We've known each other for about 50 years. If you watch some episodes of Beer to Whiskey occasionally, this is not Port's first time with us, and you see he's even got his team shirt on, unlike me who forgot to pack mine. So I'm glad he's showing the colors. And on the end down here, we have our special guest today, Nick Tarkany, and he is the owner of Heavier Than Air Brewing. And Nick, thanks for the invite.
Well, thanks, Russ.
It's we're happy to be here. Yeah, you don't have to thank him. He's just along for the ride and for the free beer. So, Nick, tell me a little bit about the history of the brewery. Where did the name come from? How did that originate?
Well, the name, obviously, we're in the Dayton, Ohio area. It's aviation related. And in the original patent that the Wright brothers had for the first airplane was to build a heavier than air machine and patent it. So that's kind of where the naming comes from. And we're huge aviation buffs here. I am a pilot, and my son was studying to be a pilot, and my brother's involved with Air Force related things out at the base, and so we're aviation enthusiasts, or nerds, or whatever you might want to call us.
How long has the brewery been here?
We've been open just over a year and a half. Our second anniversary will be coming up in September. I think we're going to have an anniversary event on September 21st and 22nd for that, for celebrating our second anniversary from our grand opening.
How much beer are you guys pushing out of here in a year, do you think?
The number is growing rapidly. We're into our second year. It's going up already. We probably have produced almost as much beer in the first 5 months or 4.5 months than we did all last year. So we have just over a 2-barrel system. We're probably pushing close to, I'm going to say close to 30 barrels so far. So we're relatively small, but we're pushed out to some of the local restaurants and a few bars, a couple of grocery stores, and we were even on tap at a local sports arena here in town, in the Dayton area.
So what do you think this year? On track for 150 barrels or so?
I'm going to be cautiously optimistic. I'm going to say our goal is to beat 90 and hopefully beat about 110.
Okay.
So that's a hopeful goal. I'm thinking we'll be past that, but it's still early.
Do you do the brewing, the actual brewing?
Yes, I do most of the brewing myself. I have a son who develops recipes for us. Ben, he lives in Portland, Oregon. He does preliminary scaled down versions and then sends me the recipe, and on occasion he will fly here to help with that first rendition. And as we add beers, so right now we have 10 beers on tap. We have probably had as many, probably on our I'm going to say 15th or 16th beer that we've introduced in this short period.
Occasionally, you're knee deep in Tarkany's here because you've got another son that pitches in and helps out too, right?
Yeah, so I've got one on the West Coast who does our beer development. He's the one who got us into this mess. I say that jokingly. Thank you, Ben. And then his older brother, Nick Jr., is the one who does all of our marketing. So he covers our beer naming. He does our social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the website, like I said, it comes up with the clever names. There's a story behind every name of our beer, and we always look forward to it. We kind of joke about that. My younger son develops a recipe. I just brew the stuff,
Right.
And then my son names it when I'm just about ready to put it on tap. So it's always a surprise to me.
Your son, who's in Oregon, you said he kind of got you into this mess. What's
Yeah.
the background of that?
Well, when he was in college, he wanted to brew home brew beer, and so we got him an extract kit, and we proceeded to boil it over on the kitchen stove, and his mother and I decided that was the last time that's going to happen. And we got a turkey fryer, and then we got a really nice stainless boil kettle, and then we got an immersion chiller, then we got a pre-chiller, and it just got out of hand from there.
Right, right. So was it your idea to go ahead and just do it?
It was a little bit of all of us. At some point, I was kind of looking for some direction of what to do, and we all kind of talked. It started off with my two sons and I, and then we brought my brother Chris into the fold to help us out with it. Yeah, it was just like, well, heck, why not? You know, I got some good reviews from friends, some ironic stories there on, you know, it's one thing to tell you it tastes good. It's another thing to actually see people go back for seconds,
Right.
thirds.
To actually pay money for it.
Actually
Yeah.
pay money for it. So, you know, I always took it with a grain of salt, saying, yeah, thank you for being nice, but
Yeah.
there's some interesting stories there, and I took a pool party or a 12-pack or something to a gathering, a graduation, a wedding, or what have you, and it built from there.
We talked a little bit about the Wright brothers and the heavier than air machine, et cetera, but you guys, pretty much everything you do here is somehow aeronautic or into the flying industry.
Yeah, we name our beers based on certain naming regimens, based on the first flight, based on a given type of aircraft, based on historical events or people. So it's usually not a direct name, but sometimes it kind of leads you to what that story's about. A classic example, the Lost at Sea, is a honey amber or red. It's in reference to Amelia Earhart.
Right.
There's a neat name behind all of them. They're all ales. We do not do lagers. We do not do sours. We're strictly ales. Maybe at some point we look at some lagers as we increase our equipment.
Were you a craft beer drinker before you got into this?
I have always been a craft beer drinker. Ever since I was old enough to drink, my next older brother, Joe, God bless rest his soul, he's since gone, but he introduced the family to true craft beer back in the 70s. And we've always been craft beer drinkers, quality rather than quantity, and that's kind of where we've steered ourselves here.
Out of the beers that are on tap right now, are any of those year-round beers things that you always make sure you've got on tap?
Yeah, we do have a few that are year-round beers. We have a couple rotating through. Our Golden Ale is a year-round beer. That we put that up on day one, and it's been a solid beer ever since. We're very happy and probably a bit lucky to nail it first time around.
Yeah.
The Honey Amber is another one. It looks dark. I gotta think which one it is here. It looks kind of dark, and people say, "Oh, it's dark," but the flavor is very deceiving from what you would what you taste. It's got a hint of sweetness, but the sweetness is because of the malts more so than the honey, because as you know, yeast likes to eat sugar too, so you
Right.
got to figure out a way to put sweetness back into beer, and honey's not one of them.
Yeah.
So that's and then the stout, which we actually did get a gold medal for last year in the Ohio Craft Brewers Cup, and that's been one I've been making for over a dozen years, along with the Honey Amber as a home brewer.
Your background is what? Engineering, did you say?
My background is tool and die industry, machining, and then got into engineering, metallurgy, troubleshooting, a number of things. It's very diverse because I've been involved in a lot of different things, from building cars to auto racing to flying to in the sports and coaching sports teams, and so my background is very diverse.
But the chemistry involved in crafting beer is something that you kind of bring to the table, right?
Yes, yes, and a lot of that is, you understand some of it, but trial and error, home brewing. Let's try this hop. Let's try that malt. Let's try, this different yeast, and understand what those subtle differences are. And over the years, we've gotten a good handle on what drives what flavor. So now, when my son develops these beers out in Portland, he's able to really have a good idea of where to start from. He's doing a super job for us.
Are you open every day? I think you just said that we happen to be here on a Wednesday, and Wednesday is kind of a new day for you to be open.
Yes, we're adding Wednesdays at least for the summer, and going forward, we'll see how that works out. Normally it's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we are open for special events as well, or we'll have a pub run group come in like on a Wednesday. We have one coming up in the first Wednesday in June where we'll open on Wednesday just for that event. We do a lot of that. We help some local charitable organizations like Optimus and Rotary and Six Humane Society, just to name a few. But the Wednesdays to the regular public is, we're going to try to make this more of a regular thing going forward for the summer.
You want to kind of guide us through some of the beers that we have here on the table?
Sure. We've got our Golden Ale, which, like I said, came out pretty much when we opened. It's a light, what you might call a session beer. It's just over 5% alcohol. It's just a beer with flavor, lighter beer with flavor, but it's not a light beer.
Yeah.
And I have a lot of people come in that drink lighter beers. They say, well, there's beer with flavor. So that was the intent, and it's actually met the market pretty well. So cheers.
Indeed.
So then we have the Honey Amber, which has a little bit of a sweetness. You can definitely taste the honey in it. It's a little more alcohol, a little more robust, but it's not bitter in any way. A lot of people confuse dark beers with bitter beers, and that's really not the case. A lot of times, a darker beer is a sweeter beer. And then the next one down is kind of a unique beer. This is something that my son totally developed in Portland. Gave me a recipe. I did a small batch in order to generate enough yeast to make a big batch.
Yeah.
So I got a chance to taste both size batches, and it just got better as we scaled it up. And it's an ESB. We call it Balloon Factory. And I only know of one other brewery in the Dayton area really making this an ESB consistently. It's an extraordinarily good beer, but it's very unique in flavor. And,
That it is, yeah.
It really hits the mark. We got a gold medal for this in the Ohio Craft Brewers Cup as well.
Oh, congratulations. ESB, what does that stand for?
It's
I should know.
extra special bitter.
Oh, okay.
It's an English style, but don't let the name fool you. Extra special bitter, and what the English call bitter isn't as bitter as what we consider bitter.
Yeah, there isn't anything bitter about this.
The name is misleading. I often withhold that information until they take a sample taste before I tell them what it means. And then I tell them, and they think, oh yeah, you're right. Had I told them it was bitter up front, they might have shied away from
Yeah.
it, but I don't tell them initially.
What's the ABV of this? Of the ESB?
6.6%. So it's higher ABV or alcohol by volume than the typical ESB, because usually in England it's going to be about a 5.4, 5.5. But we're in America.
Yeah.
And we're bolder. We make bolder beers, and that's part of our mantra here at Heavier Than Air, is to make a bold, well-crafted beer. And that one,
I agree. I would agree with that.
Is dead on. And then the next one down the line is our McCook Stout, McCook Bound. Again, not a really high alcohol, but it's a very nice balanced. It's more chocolate than coffee, and it's actually pretty refreshing. And people say that, ooh, bitter, and they taste it and go, wow, that's a pleasant surprise. So,
what is the significance of McCook?
Okay, so McCook is McCook Field was a Army Air Corps base back in the 1920s, and we actually have a picture of the inside of one of the hangars back on the wall. which is really neat to look at because the detail's incredible. But McCook Field was in North Dayton. It was probably from the mid-teens to about 1932, and then they consolidated to Wright Field, and that became a industrial park, which I happened to work at as a tool and die maker. I worked on that very site, and so the naming regimen behind McCook Bound was the first nighttime cross-country flight took place from Columbus to Dayton, where they had bonfires along the way to light the path, and then McCook Field was the final destination. So McCook Bound, it's a dark beer, it's a night flight. The attention to detail in the name. There's a naming regiment that my son Nick Jr. does, and he looks at the details.
Right.
We're very detail oriented, and he looks into that and comes up with the names. And there's a story, like I said, behind every one of the beers. You can check us out on our website. You can check us out on Facebook and look to see what those are. But that's so the attention to detail.
A little history thrown in with your brew.
There's a lot of history in every one of these glasses and every one of the names. So one of my favorite names, though, is this last one here, and it's a red IPA, which you don't see much of. It's a malty IPA, a very nice copper red color, and it's balanced with. You can balance beers with sweetness. You can balance beers with citrus. You can fruit, or you can balance them with malt. And this one is balanced with malt.
Right.
So it's going off in a new direction, but it's an IPA. It's not over the top hoppy, but it's got its share.
Yeah.
And the rutile red name is actually because of the rutile red ore used to make the SR-71 Blackbird. We needed to get titanium out of Russia, so we renamed the rutile red. They didn't know what we were pulling out of Russia, so we could build a plane to spy on them. So it's kind of a funny story.
Celebrated with a beer.
So all of our IPAs have an SR-71 theme to them. All of our American Pale Ales have a first flight theme to them. And you'll start to see these themes develop as we go. And my son, like I said, my son Nick Jr. doing a fantastic job with that.
Boy, it seems to me with all these parameters that he has set for himself, he's kind of painting himself in a corner with his naming thing.
He's very creative.
Apparently.
Well, we do this on a lot of levels here. The attention to detail is critical for us. Like our tap handles, for instance. The tap handles behind the bar are made from poplar. Why poplar? Because that's what the Wright brothers' first airplane was made of. It was poplar and spruce. And by the way, they bought that poplar from Reckworth Lumber in Dayton. So that's where our poplar came from. So we actually have both copies of the Wright brothers' receipt, and I got my receipt. Eventually, I'll get that up on a side-by-side frame. But, so the attention to detail on that is very critical in how we do things.
Yeah.
We're also big into making sure we're energy efficient. We're very conscious of the environment. So we recycle these flight trays. Were recycled from our a skid that came in that first shipment, which I happened to notice it was made out of oak, and I wasn't going to let that go into somebody's fireplace.
Yeah, right.
And my son, again, Nick Jr., came up with a pattern to lay the holes out, and we put together this as a joint effort, and they turned out really well. And you're not going to spill a beer out of them, and they hold the listing on there very nicely. And then we also do some geothermal in here on our chillers. So we run some. When we were building out the brewery, we put some geothermal tubing in the floor so we could actually use that to our advantage to be more energy efficient and environmentally friendly.
This last beer,
That's the rutile red.
Rutile Red.
Yes.
This thing's really growing on me.
It does.
I mean, it really, when I tasted it first, it was like, I don't know, but wow. As I'm working my way down through this glass, it is really growing on me.
Yeah, we get a lot of people come back, and we have one that's more hoppy. It's called JP7, which is again SR71 related. It's our hoppiest beer that we have. Basically, the JP7 was the fuel developed for the SR71, but and so it's like jet fuel.
Yeah, yeah.
And that one, I have people that's the only thing they'll order is they want to go right. What's your hoppiest? That's what I want. They love it. So a number of the beers have a good following. ESB has a very good following as well.
How many hours a week, on average, do you think you put in here? I don't know. Your wife's sitting over there. She probably has a much better idea than you do. But what do you think?
She'll say too many or a lot, and it's. I'm going to say 65 or 70.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's up there because I do. You got the accounting, you have the scheduling, you have the taxes, you have oh, by the way, we brew beer too. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are you? You do pretty much everything in the back of the house, or do you have somebody that gives you a hand?
Well, when you say in the back of the house, you talk about the brewing.
The brewery, yeah, the brewing end of it.
Actually, my brother helps out with that, and then I've had a few other people come by to just kind of, hey, can I be in there when you're doing that, and I'll mop the floor or do something else. Technically, we can't bring somebody into work for us in that capacity. It kind of puts you in a gray area. So we do most of it ourselves, and I do have a very nice staff who does serving for me. I do a lot of the serving myself on slow days, but these servers run circles around me on a busy day, so I don't even try.
Can you think of anything else?
Are you planning on getting into bottling or canning at any time in the near future?
That's a great point. We need some additional equipment, and then would like to get into canning some beer, but basically you need a minimum amount of beer for a portable canner to come in, and we don't have enough right tank space available to do that just yet, but going forward, that's something that we would like to work toward.
Okay.
We will probably, we have winter warmer, which is called wing de-icer appropriately.
Yeah.
It's a 10.8 alcohol. It's a very nice beer.
Wow.
It's kind of a snickerdoodle type flavor, but a lot of alcohol. And I've got some of that in the back, and we'll probably be putting that in the bombers here fairly soon. That's the hope. We'll see how that goes, but that's the hope.
Well, that's a good one to put in a bomber.
Yeah. Yes.
That's a good one. Well, I think we've covered a lot of ground.
We have.
And we certainly appreciate the invite.
Well, I'm glad you're here. It's great to meet you, Russ and Randy, and
you don't really have to include him.
I know. But I will. I will.
But that's because you're a nice guy, and you're detail oriented.
Yeah. The attention to detail is critical here, beyond what I can describe in a day.
Yeah. Right. Well, with that, cheers.
Cheers.
Text Miss Lily.